All right, you guys ready for this? Everyone made it to the island safe and sound. How cool is this place? Right? Amazing. I want to first start off by just thanking all the organizers. They have, behind the scenes, I can't tell you guys how hard they've worked. Anna down here, my Lord, working her tail off. So just give a round of applause to all the people that helped put this together. It can be a thankless job at times. So this first block, we're calling it Bitcoin 101, and it's for the first 4 hours until we get to lunch. And when I was asked, who should we start this thing off with, it was probably the easiest decision I've ever made because, of course, Jack Mallers, some refer to him as Jack Ballers on CNBC, he just has a way of crushing things. So the last time I was with Jack backstage, he asked me, Preston, are you going to listen to my talk? And I was like, of course. And I had no idea what he was going to talk about. He goes on stage, and he says, El Salvador is going to make Bitcoin legal tender. This is the last time he talked. He's not going, I don't think he's doing that this time with a different country. I don't think so. But you never know what you're going to get when Jack steps on stage, and I am just thrilled to call him a friend, fellow Bitcoiner, and give a warm welcome to Jack Ballers, Maulers, the one and only.
All right, how you guys doing? Yeah. Thank you, Preston. That was the nicest thing that anyone's ever said about me. That was the coolest introduction of all time. All right, let's do this. It's cool to be in Madeira in Portugal. I appreciate you guys having me. I'm really excited. So as Preston said, he was like, hey, man, I'm going to need you to open up the conference, really entertain, come in with a big punch, and talk about Bitcoin 101. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? What do you got? Want me to spell it? What does Bitcoin 101 mean? And he was like, I don't know. I have no idea. What your job is up there is to really introduce people to Bitcoin. How can you, in a weird way, put together a presentation that hopefully educates, inspires, and introduces what this whole Bitcoin thing is about? So I still didn't know what it meant. But around the time that Preston reached out to me, the Satoshi Nakamoto emails had just come out, the new ones. I found these emails fascinating, in particular, this email, and in particular, this part. So Bitcoin now is 15 years old, and there's all sorts of altcoins and cryptos, and there's proof of stake and proof of time and proof of history. But when these emails resurfaced, for me personally, it was a reminder of how important proof of work is. So if you can read the screen, Satoshi in an email said, unfortunately, proof of work is the only solution I've found to make P2P eCash work without a trusted third party. Even if I wasn't using it secondarily as a way to allocate the initial distribution of currency, proof of work is fundamental in coordinating the network and preventing double spending. And so everyone that sees this email, this has to perk everyone's ears. It's like, if that's true, then how can Ethereum work with proof of stake? How can Solana work with proof of history, right? If that's true, we really need to understand what the creator of Bitcoin meant by that. And so that's why for my Bitcoin 101, what I'm going to try and do is a very ambitious presentation. I've got quite the appetite. But we're going to try and break down Satoshi Nakamoto's innovation of using proof of work to create Bitcoin, understand why proof of work is absolutely necessary to have an internet money, and therefore why altcoins that don't use proof of work are scientifically broken. That's what we're going to try and do together in 35 minutes. Okay? All right. A failure to understand proof of work is a failure to understand Bitcoin. I have to give a shout out to my dear friend Gigi, the great Bitcoin philosopher. Yes, please. This presentation is almost an extension of all of Gigi's work. So I reached out to Gigi. I said, hey, do you mind if my Bitcoin 101 is using a lot of your stuff? And he was like, I'd be honored. So shout out to Gigi. This presentation is really in part to him. And this is what this quote is, or this presentation, is all about, is understanding proof of work so that we can deeply understand Bitcoin. Okay, so what is Bitcoin? The most impossible question to ever get asked, right? It's no one's job to tell you what it is. It's your job to tell you what it is, right? So it's in the eye of the beholder. It's whatever someone wants it to be. However, for this presentation, what I'm going to do is tell you guys that Bitcoin, in the words of Gigi, is money plus time plus energy plus information, okay? So don't feel disrespected. If you think Bitcoin is something else besides that, you have that right, but just bear with me for this presentation. This is what Bitcoin is today for the next half hour, okay? And we're going to walk through each of these in detail to understand how Satoshi constructed Bitcoin and why if you were to remove any of these, Bitcoin would not work, okay? So if you remove something like energy from Bitcoin, like if you switch to proof of stake, the system would fail. So we'll walk through each, we'll understand it all, and hopefully the conclusion will be why Bitcoin is the only internet money. Okay, money, the first section. What is it? Another impossible question. What you guys need to know is that money is information, okay? And let me try and explain the best I can in a few minutes. Let's say that we have a village on the river, and this village has a population of 2. Tiny little village, okay? One grows apples, and one grows wheat. Now, let's say they go to trade, and they say, that says, would you be willing to trade 10 apples for 1 bag of wheat? And the wheat grower says, yeah, of course, sure, right? So you have this village of 2. The economy is very simple. One has apples, one has wheat. They exchange. Now, let's say the population of this village doubles. And someone who grows cattle moves into the river village, and someone who makes boots and clothes moves into the village. And the apple lady goes, hey, I got 10 apples again. Can I get a bag of wheat? And the wheat man goes, no, I want a steak for my wheat. I don't want your fucking apples. All right? And she goes, well, that's a problem because all I have is apples. So she goes to the guy with all the cows and says, hey, can I give you my 10 apples? I'm sorry for I don't know what happened there, but can I give you my 10 apples for a steak? And he goes, I don't like apples. I could tell you what, though, I've been working hard in the field and I need a new pair of boots. And she goes, Jesus Christ, man, God damn it. Fine. And she goes to the guy that makes boots. She said, all right, I got 10 apples. Do you mind giving me boots, man, please? And he goes, yeah, sure. I'll take your apples for boots. And so then what she does is she trades the apples for the boots, right? She trades the boots for the steak, right? She trades the steak for the wheat, right? What do we learn here in understanding all of this nonsense? It's that barter is extremely inefficient, right? This is what we call bartering. This is an economy without money. Barter is inefficient and extremely time-consuming. It is very difficult to exchange a large number of goods and services through barter. Barter suffers what we call the coincidence of wants. Is do you have what I want, and do you want what I have? And it doesn't allow for the division of labor, right? If barter, you can only have an economy of 2, you can't hyperfixate and build something really particular because they may not coincidentally want what you're making, right? So in order to have a really big economy, the takeaway is that we need something else. We cannot just exchange the goods that we're creating. So what do you guys think we need to support an economy? And today we live in a world of 8 billion people, not 2. There's not two. I mean, how many people are standing right in front of me? There's not 2 of us, right? There's a lot. We need a medium of exchange. We need money, right? And so money is a medium of exchange. It's a market good that you acquire, not to consume it, not to eat it like an apple or wheat, but to use it to exchange later, okay? So if our apple grower were able and had access to create apples and exchange it for money, then she can hold the money and then always exchange it for what she would need in the future, right? Does that make sense? And so money solves barter, okay? And money it's more efficient. It makes trade easier and it scales the economy. It really solves the coincidence of wants, right? Where I can make something and you don't need to want what I have for me to exchange. Can you imagine if I walked into the grocery store and I said, hey, I'll work on Strike Europe tomorrow if you give me a steak? What would they tell me? They'd say, oh, go fuck yourself. I don't care about Strike Europe, right? It solves the coincidence of wants. I can work on Strike Europe tomorrow and get paid money for it. I could take the money, I can go get a steak, right? And so I love this slide as a multiple choice question. Money is more efficient than barter, makes trading easier, allows for us humans to specialize on things, or all of the above, right? All of these are correct. Whew. Now, what makes a good money, right? Again, very complicated, very ambitious topic, but for the sake of this presentation, this kind of breaks it down. A good money needs to be durable. It has to last through time. All the units have to be the same, okay? You cannot have a money where one unit is different than the other. It has to be portable. So you have to be able to custody it. You have to be able to transport it. You have to be able to verify it. It has to be divisible. You have to be able to make change. It has to be hard to create more of. And the most important property is that your money should maintain its value as you save it. Okay? So this slide right here, as we learn through the village of the apple grower, money is important to scale an economy, and this is what money needs to have. So the better the money, the better the society. The better we can all trade, the more we can all focus on our interests and building something very specific very well. Now, were apples a good money for that lady? Well, no, clearly not, right? Apples aren't very durable. There are different apples, like maybe you like green apples, maybe you like red apples, right? Like each unit is not the same. They're not very portable. They're not very divisible. How do you make change? Like, thank you for your purchase for 1 apple. Your change is 0.27 apples, right? They're very hard to make change out of, and they don't last through time. So we arrive back at this idea of money is information. Really, what makes a good money is it records who owes what to whom in society, okay? So throughout the history of humanity, we've had primarily 2 forms of money technology that we've been able to use. We've kept lists of things, of who owes what to whom, and we've used physical tokens, like an actual item, to record who owes what to whom. For example, an item we've used is gold, right? Gold is a money, right? And it's an item. How do I know who owes what to whom? If I have 100 ounces of gold, the world owes me 100 ounces of stuff, right? Now, what are the problems with gold? Is it good money? Gold's very durable. Each unit of gold is the same. However, gold's not very portable. It's not very divisible. It is hard, though. It does keep its value relatively over time. Now, what about a ledger? What about the US dollar, for example? The ledger is portable. It is divisible, but it's not very hard. It loses its value over time. Okay? So this is kind of the world that we live in today as far as money goes. Obviously, apples are bad money, but we've tried all sorts of ledgers, and we've tried all sorts of physical tokens and things. The problem is that ledgers are very, very efficient. They scale to all 8 billion of us, but they require trust. Tokens don't require trust. You don't need to ask anybody to own gold or spend gold. But they don't scale to all 8 billion of us. They're not very portable. They're not very divisible, right? And so what's an example of a ledger that we use today? All of the fiat currencies. So the Federal Reserve keeps a ledger, the European Central Bank keeps a ledger, the Bank of England keeps a ledger. The central banks are all these ledgers of who owes what to whom. They get to keep track of that. What's an example of a token? Gold, maybe silver, seashells, salt has been used before, right? We get the idea. One is information, one is a physical object, right? Does that make sense? They're not necessarily the same thing. And this is a very important idea, this quote. If you have an apple and I have an apple, right, and we exchange these apples, we each still have one apple. Now, if I have an idea and you have an idea and we exchange these ideas, now we both have two ideas. It's different than an apple. And this shows you that the information, exchanging information is very different than exchanging a physical object. Information money is very different than physical money, right? It's very easily copyable. So the thing about a token is I cannot move it over the internet without a trusted party. It can't scale to all 8 billion of us. It can't be put on my iPhone, right? Gold can't go in this, right? I can't put gold in my brain. But the problem with a ledger is that it has this double spend problem, is that if you have an idea and I have an idea and we exchange that information, we've inflated the supply. We both have two ideas, right? So a ledger might reflect reality, it might not. The Federal Reserve can go back and change history. Someone who operates a ledger can know the future and use it as insider information, right? So it requires trust. So tokens don't scale and ledgers require trust. Okay. Keep bearing with me here. We're almost there. So which of these did Satoshi Nakamoto try and create, right? Going back into his emails and his earlier work, Satoshi writes about, historically, people have taken up scarce commodities as money, if you can read the top there. So he's talking about tokens, right? Now, if you look into the bottom, Satoshi says, until now, no scarce commodity, so no token, can be traded over a communications channel. He's talking about the internet, without a trusted third party that's been available. That's what we just talked about, right? You can't move gold over the internet. You need these information lists that require trust. If there is a desire to take up a form of money that can be traded over the internet without a trusted third party, then now that is possible, right? Even in the white paper, Satoshi refers to Bitcoin as electronic. He talks about it as a chain. So what Satoshi realized, and what I want you guys to understand, is that in a digital world, if you want money to be on the internet, you're talking about an informational realm, right? The internet is about information. Satoshi's describing that you can't put gold on the internet. So if Satoshi wanted to build a digital scarcity, which he clearly did, he would have to build a list, not a token. Can you imagine if Satoshi was like, introducing Bitcoin, I created this physical artifact, and it was like his own physical coin, right? Of course not. He had to create a ledger, okay? And so to end this section of money, money was invented as a lubricant for the barter system, but we're way overdue for a lube and oil change. Whew, okay. That was a lot. Thank you for hanging with me. So that was step one of Satoshi inventing Bitcoin, is first understanding money. Why does barter not work? Why can't we barter with 8 billion people? And if we can't and we need money, what makes a good money? And if we're going to make the best money, is it going to be a list, or are we going to invent a token, a physical good like an artifact, right? So the first step for Satoshi Nakamoto was understand what money is and then realize that we need to create a list, okay? Next section, time. This is where I'm really going to fuck your brain up, but just keep bearing with me here. If you look at the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi talks about time a lot. So these 3 are references to time out of 8. So almost half of the references in Bitcoin are about time. If you look at the 3rd section in the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi talks about it as a timestamp server. I just love Bitcoin history. If I ever am not working on strike, I want to be a Bitcoin historian. If you look at the comments that Satoshi put in the initial code of Bitcoin, he talks about Bitcoin as a time chain. He does it multiple times. Proof of work to everyone, and the block is added to the time chain. So time is clearly extremely important to Satoshi Nakamoto in creating this invention. Why? Why do you guys think that's the case? It's because in order to have a list of who owes what to whom, you have to have the absolute order of the transactions. If I have $10 and I spend $10 to my friend Bob and then another $10 to my friend Carol, one of those transactions is invalid. It won't go through. So the question is, which one was spent first? Does Bob get the money or does Carol get the money? It's incredibly important to have a sequential order in time of a list. And so the question then is, if Bitcoin is a distributed system, who's in charge of its time? This is why Satoshi was so focused on time, and it's very subtle to understand how Bitcoin was built by Satoshi Nakamoto, but it's super important, is that if you're building an independent system that has no outside influence, who's in charge of time? Is Bitcoin's time from a clock? Is Bitcoin's time on my iPhone? If my iPhone dies, is Bitcoin going to stop working? Does Bitcoin keep time on Joe Biden's laptop or on Amazon's web servers or with Elon Musk, right? This is the problem, is if you're creating a money list, a ledger that's going to keep track of who owes what to whom, and it needs to be truly decentralized and distributed, who's in charge of time? And what Satoshi came to the conclusion is that Bitcoin has to create its own fucking time. That's the mind-blowing thing about this invention, is he said, I can't trust anyone else's time, because that time can mess with the system. So in order for Bitcoin to be its own independent digital money, I have to create my own time. Okay, so now we're going to get into time. Bear with me. Keep bearing with me. The only thing I need you guys to know about time in this whole presentation is that it has a direction. Hence the term arrow of time, right? Time has a direction. There's an arrow of time. All this means is that the past is different than the future, right? I was younger in the past. I will be older in the future. I remember the past. I cannot remember the future. The past I cannot change. The future I don't know. Do you understand? This is what's called the arrow of time. Time moves in this direction, okay? Now, in the physical world, this is very obvious, as I just explained, right? I mean, nobody can go back in time when they were a kid, and nobody knows where they're going to be 20 years from now, right? But the key thing about the physical world that makes society work is that the past is certain and the future is unknown. If that was not the case, if we all knew the future and we can all go back in the past, we'd all be fucking dead at this point, right? It's the atoms in the universe that allow us to live through time like we do. The problem is in the digital world, we don't have time. All we have is information. The physical world is built of atoms in the universe and physical things. The digital world is just built of bytes of data. So in the digital world, the number 10, I do know the number before it, and I do know the number after it, right? I do know the past and the future. If numbers were time, I wouldn't be able to know the future is 11 and the past is 9, right? Or if I were watching a movie, I could rewind time to the beginning scene of the movie, or I can fast forward time to the very end and watch how the movie ends, right? So the problem is in the digital world, we don't have this arrow of time, right? You guys keeping with me? This is a lot. So if Bitcoin's going to design its own time, it's good. I sound like a nut job, but if Satoshi is going to design its own time, I want you guys to understand we don't need a precise clock like we're running the Olympics. We don't care about milliseconds, right? This is not what we're looking for. Bitcoin needs an arrow of time, as I'm describing. We need to somehow replicate the time we have in the real world. We need to somehow have an unchanging past and an undetermined future, okay? Satoshi talks about this. He says, proof of work is the only solution he's found to make this a reality, okay? To implement a distributed timestamp server on a peer-to-peer basis, so to translate that into normal speak, if I'm going to fucking invent time on the internet without any trust, that's what he's saying. We need to use proof of work. It is the only way that this is possible. So what is proof of work? Proof of work is a form of cryptographic proof in which one party proves to others that a certain amount of a specific computational effort has been expended. Verifiers can subsequently confirm this expenditure with minimal effort of their part. For those of you that don't know what that means, this is my version of it in Jack language. Proof of work is proof that you did a certain amount of work to guess a random number. The person verifying that can make the work as hard as they want, and they can verify it instantly, okay? Now, the reason that Satoshi uses proof of work and that this is so important is that this is a piece of data that the digital world can understand. Let me go back for a second. I didn't plan this, but do you guys understand this slide here? The digital world doesn't understand atoms. It doesn't understand energy. It doesn't have an arrow of time, right? If I'm counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I know the future and I know the past. So the internet, the digital world, the bytes of data doesn't know what time is, right? The physical world does because of atoms, because of energy, right? And so what Satoshi is saying is that proof of work is the only way for us to take energy from the physical world, from this world, and turn it into a digital thing that the internet can understand. Do you understand? So proof of work doesn't require trust. Someone can give me proof of work, and I don't need to trust that they did the work. I can verify it myself. Proof of work can be done by anyone. Any of you can do it, right? You don't need to get a degree at a college. You don't need to give me your resume. Anyone can do it. It has unforgeable costliness, just like gold does. This is what gives Bitcoin a commodity premium. It's costly to do the work. And it allows Bitcoin to establish an undisputable history of events. The future work is unknown, and the past work is easy to verify. The key to Bitcoin and Satoshi unlocking this whole thing and why we're all here is that he found a trustless piece of info, a trustless piece of data that can be produced by the physical world with atoms and with energy, linking this universe to his digital scarce money. More Satoshi quotes. So he writes, in this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof of the chronological order of transactions. So proof of work gives Bitcoin its arrow of time. If you actually look at Bitcoin blocks, not to get too technical with you guys, but all they are transactions and the proof of work as a timestamp. Bitcoin's just a timestamp server. So Satoshi is etching time with proof of work. If you look at the actual Bitcoin blockchain, we can watch this. Now, for some reason, Bitcoin block explorers work time in reverse, so time's actually going this way. But you can see the purple is the known past that cannot be changed. The orange is the uncertain future. When you guys use a Bitcoin wallet, and your transaction's unconfirmed, that's what that means. We don't know the future, we can't change the past, and we are living in the eternal now. So this motherfucker, Satoshi Nakamoto, created digital time. Insane. Insane. Now, is he done? Has he solved time? Can we move on to the next topic? Almost. Super close. There's one last piece. In order for us to have distributed consensus, so again, we're building a money that's information. It's a giant list, right? In order for all of us to be able to agree on the sequencing of that list, we have to keep in mind of the speed of light. And this, I'll come back to this because this is why shitcoins don't work, like Solana. So this is important. But the speed of light is, call it around 50 milliseconds, right? This is the fastest information can travel, okay? So the reason that Satoshi was almost done solving for time in a digital realm is because think of Bitcoin, the blocks are like a clock. Every single Bitcoin block is like tick, 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 right? Bitcoin, each block is like Bitcoin keeping track of time, okay? Now, if the proof of work remained the same difficulty, more work would speed up the clock, right? Does that make sense? So that would leave Bitcoin, if we sped up the clock too fast, we would violate the speed of light. All of us wouldn't be able to get into consensus in a distributed way because Bitcoin would be moving too fast, right? It makes sense? So if Bitcoin was the same amount of difficulty, someone could get a lot of energy, plow it into Bitcoin, speed up Bitcoin's clock, and leave us out of consensus. And Satoshi talks about this. To compensate for increasing hardware speed and varying interest of running nodes over time, so nodes here he means miners, the proof of work difficulty is determined by a moving average, targeting an average number of blocks per hour. If they're generated too fast, the difficulty increases. So why are Bitcoin's blocks 10 minutes? Satoshi Nakamoto created time and then slowed it down. 10 minutes is an arbitrary number, but 10 minutes is long enough to make sure that we're accounting for the speed of light and that Bitcoin isn't moving too fast for all of us to agree on the ordering of transactions. But it's also short enough where it's a decent user experience. People aren't going to get like super fucking pissed off, right? That's how he got to that solution. So I don't know who said this quote. Someone super smart, so shout out to you, whoever did this. But difficulty-adjusted proof of work is what makes Bitcoin a decentralized clock, okay? As computers get faster and the total computing power applied to creating Bitcoins increases, the difficulty increases proportionally to the new production constant. Thus, it is known in advance how many new Bitcoins will be created every year in the future. So once you understand that Satoshi created time, you now understand why Bitcoins are stuck in time, right? This is how we know when Bitcoins are going to be issued. This is why it's the hardest money ever. Gold is stuck in the ground. Bitcoin is stuck in time. Do you guys understand how mind-boggling that is? This is why if there's enough demand for gold, we will find more in the ground. We can dig it out of the ground. When someone digs up gold, they didn't create it, they found it, right? All the gold already exists. There's just more in the ground if we want to go dig it up. Same with Bitcoin. All 21 million of it already exists. But you can't dig it out of the ground. You got to dig it out of time. So if you want to find more gold, you just need to get more tools to dig it out of the ground. If you want to find more Bitcoin, you got to solve motherfucking time travel. Do you understand? That's why we're at 60K right now, is because Wall Street wants more Bitcoin and they can't travel to the future and get it. Satoshi Nakamoto, this guy, I mean, undisputed greatest of all time. This guy created his own version of time, slowed it down so that all of us can agree on the ordering of transactions, and then he set a monetary policy, the hardest ever, that sticks a physical money in time, not in the ground. Insane! You gotta be fucking kidding me. Okay. Money and time, those two sections were the hardest. That's some crazy shit right there. That's tough. And I'm looking at the clock. I won't go too over. I got about 10 minutes. So these two sections are a lot lighter. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Energy. So Bitcoin's not totally done yet, okay? What's important to understand about energy, proof of work requires computations. Proof of work is just guessing. It's a lot of work to guess a random number, right? We just talked about that. These computations require energy. Therefore, proof of work requires energy. There's no way to do the work without energy, okay? Now, I think you guys all know, I mean, not everyone's a physicist, but everyone is not stupid, right? Everyone knows energy is the currency of the universe, right? In physics, energy is the quantitative property that is transferred to a body or to a physical system, right? It's how we really, like, measure the universe, okay? Energy is distributed fairly and accessible to everyone. This is why it's very important to Bitcoin. All of us have access to energy. If you're born, you got energy, okay? You can't fake it. You can't cheat it. You can't argue with it. You can't dispute it, right? Requiring energy gives Bitcoin its unforgeable costliness. The fact that proof of work requires energy is the reason that it has an unforgeable costliness like gold, that it has a commodity premium like gold, that it's hard to make more of, is because all of us have access to energy, but no one can print it. It's very fair, and you can't argue with it. And through proof of work, it's the energy is what connects, like the atoms in this universe around us, that's what connects the real world to the digital Bitcoins, right? So when people say Bitcoin's not backed by anything, no. Bitcoin has atoms from the real universe. It has real energy in it, okay? So proof of work requiring energy is the reason proof of work cannot be cheated and what connects Bitcoin to the outside world. And it's actually the fact that energy spent on proof of work is why you can't time travel in Bitcoin. So I just wanted to make this quick point. Do you guys remember this is Bitcoin's arrow of time? So if you look at the purple here, the known past, the reason you can't time travel in Bitcoin and go back into the past is because of the energy that was spent to create it. Right? When people say you have to redo the proof of work, all of that purple is protected by energy. So you cannot time travel in Bitcoin. It's the same reason I can't time travel today. I wish I could go back in time 15 years ago and start mining Bitcoin as soon as Satoshi released it, but I can't, right? That's impossible. And the reason it's impossible to time travel in Bitcoin and say, I wish I went back. So I said on a podcast recently, I bought a painting for 6 Bitcoin once. It was one of the worst decisions of my life. That thing's not worth $300,000. You got to be out of your fucking mind. I wish I could go back to that purple block and change that, but I can't. And I can't because of the energy piece, right? And this one blows my mind a little bit. This is fucking crazy. Lists of money that we know, like the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank or the Bank of England, these are lists that reference energy in the outside world, right? They're just pieces of paper. So when Jerome Powell comes out and says, I'm changing the interest rate, that didn't require any energy, right? What do you guys think goes into a Fed meeting? Jerome Powell is probably like, are we going to raise the rates or lower the rates? All right, now what do you want on your pizza, right? It's like, it doesn't require any energy. But Bitcoin, with proof of work, the outside world, the energy from the outside world is put into its list. So the Federal Reserve's list points to energy outside. The energy outside in Bitcoin is internalized into its list. You understand? Crazy, crazy. Okay, so we're building Bitcoin. We are all Satoshi. So firstly, Satoshi had to understand money, understand barter, what was going on. Realized that he needed to create a list instead of a physical token. He had to create his own arrow of time with proof of work. He had to slow time down so that we can all get into consensus. He set a hard monetary policy that was stuck in time. Then he uses energy through proof of work to create unforgeable costliness to make it a commodity premium like gold, and then uses energy to defend the past so that you can't travel through time in Bitcoin. You cannot go backwards in time. Now, the last piece is just more fun for me is information. Because of all of this, the information is the asset. When someone says Bitcoin is a bearer instrument, it's a physical instrument, the thing that racks no coiners' brains is they're like, where? Where is it? Right? I can't see it. I can't hold it. I can't touch it. I can't sit on it. That's because the information is the asset. Okay? So again, shout out to Gigi. This map is not the territory. When you look at a map of the world, it's not actually the world. Can you imagine? I flew here from Chicago. It was ridiculous. It was like 12 hours. If I could just use a map and just drag my finger from Chicago to Madeira, that'd be great. But the map on my phone isn't the actual world. I have to go get on a fucking plane, right? But in Bitcoin, the map is the world. The map is the territory. The data is the asset. The literal physical information is the money itself, right? So if you look at, again, the lists and the token, and how we talked about, they're not the same. The difference between the Federal Reserve's list of who owes what to whom and gold's coins of who owes what to whom, they're very different. But in Bitcoin, the list is the money and the money is the list, right? And the only thing we can move on the internet is information. It's the only thing we can teleport, right? But because of this, because information is now money, the map is the territory, the data is the bearer instrument, we can teleport value. We can put value in our head, right? So I got to take another shot at gold bugs. Gold is stuck in your butt. Bitcoin is safe in your brain, right? How would I put gold, how would I get gold through the airport? I can't put it in my brain, right? My ear hole isn't wide enough, right? It's got to go up my butt, I guess. But the fact that the data is the money allows for amazing things. We can teleport data instantly. We can put a physical money in our brain. And so the last for information, this is another GG one, but I couldn't resist because you guys know I'm a chess player. Bitcoin is like chess. And what I mean by that is that chess, as defined, is a turn-based strategy game with no hidden information. Okay? So even your opponent knows your moves. There's nothing to hide. Chess has very strict rules. You play by the game, and it's all information, right? Like, this is a valid chess move. You guys know that from me. I love saying E4, E4, E4. It's a real chess move. It looks like this, right? Now, if my opponent were to say queen to D4, that would be an invalid move, okay? The queen can't make that move. That's not allowed, right? This is a valid chess game. These are all just chess moves, right? They're just data. Bitcoin is like chess. It's just data, right? But this game actually played out. This is the game of the century by Bobby Fischer. It's one of my favorite chess games of all time. So all you need is the data to understand chess. And if you try and make an invalid move, the chess consensus rules don't allow it, right? And so Bitcoin is the same way. All you need is the information. If I go back to this, someone can give you all of the historical information in Bitcoin. You could download the blockchain, and you can play every single move through Bitcoin's arrow of time. All it is information. The information is the asset. Okay, so to end it, this is how Satoshi created Bitcoin. He first understood money, then realized you need to create a list, then created his own arrow of time, then slowed down time for consensus, set a hard monetary policy, stuck in time, used energy to create unforgeable costliness, used energy to defend the past, made information the actual asset, which allows us to censorship-resistantly teleport value over a communications channel like the web. Real quick, I'm getting barked at. These are my favorite takeaways. There's a lot to unpack here. I hope this gets uploaded on YouTube. This is so much fun to put together and present for you guys. But some takeaways here. Difficulty-adjusted proof of work is the innovation. Do you guys understand? Proof of work is what connects the real world to Bitcoin. If you don't have proof of work, you don't have atoms that are in the real universe in your Bitcoins, right? This was the unlock in the new Satoshi emails and the new emails that were just released. He talks about it. He's like, this is the only way I could figure out how to connect the real world to my digital money. No proof of work means no real world value. Now, this is my favorite part. This is why I don't want to get kicked off yet. The other cryptocurrencies that don't use proof of work scientifically cannot be money. Okay, what do I mean by that? It's hard to say this without laughing. Solana uses proof of history, whatever the fuck that means. Ethereum uses proof of stake now. It doesn't use proof of work anymore, right? I Googled, this was this morning. I was finishing up, and I Googled, when was the last time Solana went down? It was like Tuesday. And it goes down. Solana faces 11th network outage in 2 years. It goes down all the time. Why? Now, because of this presentation, hopefully you guys understand why. Look at how fast their clocks are moving, not their blocks. Blockchain is a scam. Stop saying that. Time chain, time chain, time chain. Bitcoin is time, right? Satoshi created digital time. He created a digital clock. Look how fast their clocks are moving. 400 milliseconds. Solana isn't accounting for the speed of light. The reason it fails so much is because they're not able to get distributed consensus. The clock is moving too fast, right? So whenever a shitcoin is like, oh, we made a faster Bitcoin, they're lying to you. They're violating the speed of light. So next time, send someone this presentation and say, no, 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 no. Solana scientifically cannot be distributed money. Like according to the speed of light, not according to what your fucking favorite influencer told you, right? So, yeah, yes. And so I don't know what Ethereum and Solana, maybe these things are technologies, maybe they're securities, I have no idea. But they're not money, right? They're clearly not money. So Bitcoin's issuance is stuck in time. This is why Bitcoin's going up so much, is you can't find any more in the ground. You'd have to travel. You'd have to invent time travel to find more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is built on time, which is our only scarce resource. Blockchain is a scam. Stop using that word. We should call it the time chain. That's what Satoshi called it. Energy defends our past, and it's a censorship-resistant way to teleport value. Whew, all right.
Am I on?
Thank you, guys.